You've talked to me about your vision in the past, but I'm wondering if you can describe it, maybe by, giving some examples of what you can see and what you can't see.
So my vision's pretty bad. I have a degenerative corneal disease called keratoconus that makes everything really blurry. And in my right eye is completely blind. My left eye's had some surgery, so I have some remaining eyesight up to about... It started out pretty good after my surgeries when I was a little kid, but then over time, the disease takes back over, and it slowly got worse and worse and worse. My field of vision as of now, it probably extends maybe a few inches from my face, not too far, but if I have like bold print, it's large enough font, I can get it up close to my face and see it, so I can operate my cell phone. And I can see light just perfectly fine.
I'm with an organization called CaveSim, and we travel around the US with mobile caves that we build doing educational programs for schools, parks, and other organizations. In addition to that, I'm also a cave explorer. Exploring caves can be extremely difficult, but being a caver does not necessarily mean that you need to be able to see. One of my friends, Zach, is a visually impaired caver from Austin, Texas, and he crawls and climbs through tight, complicated passages just as well as a sighted person. Many of the caves around Austin, Texas were filled in years ago with dirt and trash by ranchers who didn't understand the importance of groundwater conservation. Zach and other cavers in Austin work hard to dig out these caves, which helps to reduce the risk of flooding in the city. I have worked alongside Zach during a dig project, and his visual impairment does not seem to slow him down at all. Zach and I are about to talk by video call for an interview. Hey, Zach.
Hey, dude.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Where are you guys gonna go hiking?
Washita National Forest.
Awesome.
I'm spending 5 days out there starting tomorrow.
Cool. That's great. Have you been there before?
I hiked a trail nearby last year. We're going somewhere different this time.
Very cool. You like your new place there?
Yeah, we do. Still kind of settling in.
Are you guys getting to go caving much?
For work.
Oh, cool.
Working on the dig sites. And I try to make it back twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
I
Awesome.
was due to go this week, but my dad wanted to go on this hiking trip.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making that the priority.
So I know you've told me this before. I'm going to ask you a bunch of things that I've asked you before, and you'll get tired of repeating yourself. But how did you get into caving, and when did you get into caving?
I would have started out when I was younger, going to show caves when I was a little kid. That got me interested in caves, so in school I would be reading all the books I could find on caves. And living in Austin, it started out as a hobby, looking at karst features.
So did you get into UT Grotto? Was there somebody you connected with in UT Grotto?
Almost. Back when I was in college in 2007, it was suggested to me that I go check out the UT Grotto. And I thought about it. I thought about other experiences I've had with groups, and I thought, no, I'm not going to elect to do something social outside of school, so I left it alone. It wasn't until 2016 I started it up as a hobby, going and looking at karst features around Austin, Texas. I was fascinated with how the geology worked.
So were you out looking at some stuff and you ran into some folks from the UT Grotto?
No, it was 2018. My sister wanted to go to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky because I had been getting more and more obsessed with caves around Austin and digging on sinkholes by myself. And then I'd come home with all these stories about stuff that I was doing, and people would be telling me, that's dangerous, don't do that. And then my sister was like, we need to go to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. So we went, and I hadn't actually been inside a cave in a long time, or anything proper, or show cave. So I felt a little more inspired. We were on a kayaking trip on the river. And we came across a wild cave that I crawled into, and it was full of water, and there was this split off 3 different passages, and I was sitting in there in this freezing cold water looking at these black stalactites hanging from the ceiling, and that's when it finally occurred to me that this sort of thing is dangerous and that there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. I was thinking about my sister and her boyfriend and my girlfriend who were right behind me, who I was assuming were going to follow me in there. And I thought, I don't want anybody in here. I don't even want to be in here because I don't know what I'm doing. And that is what got me to go and seek out the UT Grotto when I got back home to Austin. Because I did want to learn more about caves, but I wanted to learn it properly. And I really wanted to pursue it as an actual hobby where I was getting educated and not just doing something stupid.
So when you first went to the grotto, not all groups are super fantastic and super welcoming. What was that kind of experience like?
It was all right. I think it was great for me because nobody was coming up to me and asking me any unnecessary questions. I didn't feel like they put on a presentation, and I was able to just sit in the back and listen to people talk, and every single person there was only talking about caves, nothing else. And so it was just great listening to people tell their stories. Somebody did come up to me just before I was leaving and asked me questions about my interest level. He's trying to gauge if I was someone who was going to be coming back and if I was worth the energy to put into.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that kind of segues into a question I wanted to ask you. So a lot of people dabble in caving, and we see that a lot, where somebody will come to a grotto meeting once or maybe twice, they might go on a couple trips, and then they fall away from it, and you've obviously stuck with it. So what keeps you super excited about caving?
There's something that's always stuck with me since I was little about caves. I don't know exactly what it is, but...
I went caving with you, and I was super impressed by your skill. Just like, if they put me in a crawlway with you and nobody had told me about your vision, I would not have known that you have any kind of issue at all with your vision. Maybe tell us what you can see and what you can't see. Is that a question that you thought about and you want to take a stab at?
Yeah, I can answer that for you. So with my eyesight, it's pretty bad. I'm completely blind in my right eye, and I have a little bit of remaining eyesight in my left eye. Anything that's up close enough, if there's print that's large enough, I can hold it up really close,
If you were to take me caving and I had the same vision that you have, are there some technical pieces of advice that you would give me?
So if I was going into a cave with somebody with similar vision to mine?
Yeah, exactly. If it was me and I had the same vision that you have, and I was, I'm a caver, right? So I know about conservation, but all of a sudden I have the same vision that you have. What advice would you give me?
Well, thankfully, it would be about the same as it would for anybody, since I feel like people with low vision would have the advantage, since mostly it's just a lot of physical contact with the environment. But somebody with a vision impairment who isn't familiar with the cave I would suggest staying directly behind the person who knows where to go, to watch where they put their hands, be really gentle with anything they touch. Just pay attention to the airflow in a cave. I can tell you how much a room opens up, kind of give you an idea of where you're at, because when you can't see anything with your light, it feels like you're going to bump into everything. It feels like the ceiling and the walls are always right there next to you.
I know that from having caved with you, I know that you don't use any kind of echolocation. Does sound play a role for you at all, though?
I wish it did. Not really. Sound inside a cave can be confusing. Water drips, and sometimes you can't determine where it comes from. But sometimes with the airflow, you can determine maybe the size of a room or not, or maybe where a passage continues along or not. But so much of that is misleading that it all comes down to what you can feel with your hands and feet. When
I dug with you in Flint Ridge was an interesting trip for me, because nobody told me about the septic leak that was happening in Flint Ridge. Do you remember when we went in there? It was pretty nasty. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if it's always like that.
It's some really depressing stuff. It's part of my job for the city to gather data on the pollution in the sewer that leaks into that cave, and it's pretty brutal.
So for you, for me, that seemed like a hardcore trip, right? We were throwing sandbags full of rocks down this low crawlway in kind of like a bucket brigade.
I remember that, moving those bags in Flint Ridge.
And yet for you, that seemed like an easy trip. So do you want to tell us about, for somebody who's not a caver, do you want to tell us about some of the dig work that you've done that's just mind-bogglingly difficult?
Yeah. Some of what we do is karst restoration. Karst that's been filled in by previous farmers, or some means or another. They'll dump gravel or something into the hole and we're digging it out. But the idea is to restore the karst back to how nature intended it to be, a hole in the ground that water can flow into. And so that starts out with digging away the vegetation and digging out the hole so that it's open. And then we're dumping dirt and rocks into buckets and having to haul them out and dump it somewhere else. And there'll be huge boulders in the way, that we do a process called bull pinning. It's a lot of fun. We drill a little hole into the rock and then stick a metal spike into it and then bash on it with a hammer until the rock breaks into smaller pieces. Labor intensive as it might be, I think it's a lot of fun, so I don't ever feel like I'm getting tired from it until I get home. But I think if somebody was doing it on their first day, they'd end up sore the next day.
Other cavers, a lot of people know about speleology, they know about cave invertebrates, they know about SRT systems, rope systems, things like that. But most cavers don't know what it's like to be a visually impaired caver. What are some of the things that you wish your fellow cavers knew about being visually impaired?
The way I do things is often a little bit different. I think that sometimes people are watching what I'm doing. I gotta get a feel for things sometimes. So I'm touching everything. Maybe I pick up a wrong tool, or maybe I'm going in the wrong direction. Like exploring a cave for me, visually you could look at the end of a passage and see that it dead ends, and then to you it's over with. The exploration's over with. But for me, exploring that dead end passage is physically crawling through it. And so while I'm having fun crawling through it, somebody will see me do that and say, no, you're going the wrong way. And whether I know that or not is irrelevant. That's just how I'm exploring. I can't expect people to telepathically know what's going through my head, but it gets kind of annoying or old when people think you're doing something wrong, and maybe you are, but it almost always relates back to your vision. You just gotta not take it personally. There's little things like that.
So that answered my next question pretty well. My next question was, if you were coming to visit me in Colorado to go caving, which I hope you guys will, and you were with a group of cavers that you'd never met before, can you kind of say how they would probably interact with you? And are there things, in addition to what you just said, are there other things that you wish that they would do differently?
I go through this scenario a lot. If I do disclose my eyesight to others, the typical reaction that I expect is there's a lot of curiosity, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of shock and surprise. Typically about anything that I'm doing, people seem to think that because your vision's low, there's a lot of things that you're not going to do. I try not to think about telling people what to do or how to think. If they want to ask me questions or if they want to act a certain way around me, that's up to them. I'm usually there for my own reasons, so I'm okay with anything anybody has to say. But most of the time, it's genuine curiosity.
So let's say you met somebody who is also visually impaired. Maybe they do some other pretty intense activities. I'm thinking of stuff like maybe like rock climbing, or I know you're going to go on this backpacking trip. Maybe somebody else who's visually impaired who does some pretty intense activities. And, maybe they even know about caving clubs, kind of like you sort of knew about caving clubs for a while there. But they've never tried wild caving before. Can you give them some advice and sort of some guidance about the sport?
This is something that I've faced because with show caves are lost on me because it's all about walking on a guided path and you look at the pretty lit up cave formations. But for me, all I can do is just listen to everybody else talk about how pretty they are. But you go into a cave that's not a show cave that you're there to explore. You can get a lot more out of it than visual stuff that people are talking about. There's a certain kind of atmosphere that you can't achieve, a certain kind of silence that might appeal to certain people. And athletically speaking, it can be a good workout. So that might appeal to someone. For me, and this might sound weird, I don't know, but I've always had an obsession with caves. So even though I can't see the stuff that we're crawling through, the fact that I'm crawling through these things I've read about in books, heard about my whole life, that's enough for me just to know that I'm there next to there'll be cave pearls or certain kinds of, I'm forgetting what they're called, but having that experience, being there is, if you're interested in it, it's something you've been researching, then just being there is enough. I've never felt like not being able to see any of it ever detracted from the experience. Plus, you got people around you talking about it and describing it.
So I know that you're about to go on a hiking trip. I guess it's a week-long backpacking trip. Do you want to tell us about some of the other hobbies that you're into?
I'm really into cycling, like almost obsessed with it. I've been cycling since I was a little kid. When I lost my eyesight, I didn't stop. So I've kept up with that. I'm really into kayaking. I used to take regular kayaking trips to different places, but I haven't been in the last couple of years. I do like to do a lot of hiking, though I find hiking isn't physically intensive enough to be that interesting. So if I'm hiking, it's usually to get to somewhere else to do something. I used to be into a little bit of rock climbing when I was in college, but I didn't have the money to afford the gear. So the way that I was doing it, I realize now how dangerous some of that was, so I try not to talk about it. I've always been obsessed with science fiction. I like to write, so I write a lot of science fiction and political fiction. But for some reason, I'm obsessed with keeping it really secret. I don't let anybody ever look at it.
So as you know, I mean, you're familiar with CaveSim. I run this small business, and especially now during COVID, trying to survive as a business is really, really difficult. I face all kinds of challenges. I get all kinds of rejection on a daily basis. And, I'm trying to strive to grow this business and have a positive impact on the world. So I personally find it super helpful to listen to other people who have a lot of tenacity and persistence. Do you want to, let's say there's, you want to give me some advice, or somebody else some advice who is, facing challenges. You obviously have a lot of tenacity. Do you want to share your thoughts about that?
Persistence is something I know really well. The best thing I could say on that is, since my life is a sequence of little problems that I have to solve every single day, I know from experience that when there's a problem that you got to solve, you can get hung up trying to plan out finding the answers beforehand. But sometimes I find that you can only get the answers when you're taking action, when you just get your hands dirty, so to speak. For example, recently I was cutting a trail through some woods. These are some really overgrown woods, and I have no idea what it's supposed to look like. I don't spend too much time dwelling on planning that out. I just start cutting the trail, and then it works itself out.
Cool. Was that associated with a caving trip?
No, that I just bought a property recently with some woods in the back, and I'm trying to figure out how to turn it into something nice. And I have no idea what it's supposed to look like, but I just have to make myself start working on it. And then next thing I know, it's looking great. And I don't know how I did it, but I wouldn't have ever got it done if I just sat around thinking about it, trying to draw it up on paper or something.
I did have a question about creative approaches that you use to getting around, but I feel like that's kind of a lame question because you're telling me that you're cutting a trail through the woods. So I
remember that question in the email, how creative ways that I get around Austin. Yeah, I got a few. With low vision, obviously cane use, but I mean, that kind of goes without saying. I use the traffic, like when I'm out and about, you pretty much have to walk everywhere, since I've never had somebody to rely on to drive me anywhere. And I hate taking the city bus. So I spend a lot of time walking to my destination. And ways that I get around, I listen for the traffic. Traffic on the road tells me exactly where the road is, which way the cars are going, tells me where I'm going to find the sidewalk. I listen for pedestrians. Pedestrians walking is a good way to get tipped off on where crosswalks are, especially ones that are in the middle of the sidewalk that go across the road and not necessarily at an intersection. Same thing with going into the grocery store entrance. You can follow the trail of people. It goes the same in grocery stores too when I'm grocery shopping. I don't know how many people, if they ever realize it, but there's a lot of times I use other people when they're walking. I'll walk a little bit behind them or a little bit to their side, and they're kind of they don't realize it, but they're sort of guiding me through the store inadvertently. With the little remaining eyesight that I have, I keep a high-powered monocular scope in my pocket that I can pull out anytime, and I can use it to see anything at a distance. It's got a pretty good field of view on it, and I've gotten comfortable using it since high school, so I make good use of it. It's probably one of the most valuable things to me that I own. It's essentially my eyesight in my pocket.
Is that something you take caving, or is it too delicate to take underground?
I wouldn't take it underground. You're always getting gored by a rock sticking out somewhere. I imagine it'd either get broken or get dirt in it somehow. I wouldn't risk it. And it's too dark anyway.
Do you use it, like you were talking about the grocery store, do you use it in the grocery store to look at items that you like to differentiate? There are just a bajillion different choices, right? Do you use it to kind of pick what you want?
Yes, absolutely. I use it to look at labels, ingredients, try and determine what's on an aisle without having to walk all the way down it, and just hope that nobody thinks I'm taking their picture.
Awesome. So you've done extremely well answering these questions. Thanks for talking with me. I really feel like my goal in this is to help other people who, like, regardless of their vision, to like understand what it's like to be visually impaired and to just open up their minds. So it's super generous of you to be willing to talk about this, to help other people and to help me.
Thanks for the interview.